tell us something. They have figured out the formula for chaos.
When the clock strikes 8:30, babe, time to head for Chris's house. Will the song make it to the next round? Pot of Thunder. Let's pot tonight. Come on, baby, let's pot tonight.
Yes, give it up for Doc Gibbs and the Emerald Live Band here each and every week on Pot of Thunder, the recognized symbol of excellence in rock and roll podcasting, brought to you by patreon.com/Pot of Thunder. Something for every budget. I know what you got in your wallet. There was a data leak, I found out, and you've got enough. So go to patreon.com/Pot of Thunder.
Andy checked the What You're Worth website.
Yep, for each and every listener.
For every listener.
Yep. And you've all got enough to get in on at least one of those tiers. Maybe get on two of them. I don't know. Why not?
Can you do that?
You'd be wasting your money, but that's okay with us. Pay twice. That's fine. Patreon.com/Pot of Thunder. You know me. This is your
I
current...
paid twice for a pay toilet once.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
We'll put a pin in that. We'll be right back.
No, I wasn't alive during pay toilets.
Okay.
If he could have put a pin in it, he wouldn't have had to pay twice.
That's true.
So.
That's true. All right. Hey.
You owe Andy money.
You owe me money. Cough it up. And now he's getting up. The man behind me. You can hear his satin, whatever that is. Ladies and gentlemen.
Dancing his way across the podcast
Nick Pollock has entered the program. Nick, welcome.
Welcome to you.
Glad to have you here.
Nobody welcomes you. How about that?
Well, that's I welcome.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah. So twice for the pay toilet. Make it up.
Make it up.
So that was just a joke. Were you saying that it was?
We weren't alive during the era of pay toilets.
Oh, okay.
I was.
You would have been. Well, how long did that even last?
I can't pinpoint it, but I remember them. Yeah.
Before just people just destroyed them, I'm sure, out of frustration, and they said maybe this isn't a good idea.
Yeah, he probably destroyed the locks or just simply defecated in the middle of the bathroom, and businesses got wise and decided that wasn't a good idea to charge for that.
Crawling under the stall in a public toilet's not a
No.
It's not going to help matters.
No, it's not
It's not going to help your morale.
No.
I went to a beach in Germany and they had a pay toilet. I thought, oh, that explains their pornography. No wonder they crap on each other all the time. I don't know, but they did have a pay toilet. I was shocked to see one in real life at the beach. I guess I'm not going to the bathroom.
Well, we're walking in urine when you go into the bathroom at the beach anyway. So
yeah,
I thought Germany was a landlocked country. Where they got lakes over there?
No, there's a sea at the top.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Yes, sir.
They still have pay toilets.
Yep. Oh, one more thing I was going to say. I went to a gas station the other day, right? Not my typical gas station, but I was like, I'm going to pee and gas up, right? Premium fuel on that thing. So, it's worth it. It's worth the trade. Let me pee in there and I'll buy this gas. No bathroom. Not even an out-of-order bathroom. No bathroom.
Not even a toilet installed on the premises.
Nothing.
That's not even legal.
That's what I thought. I was like, what is this? I've never seen this in my life. And it wasn't, like extremely small where it's just, the worker and I'm trying to get in his bathroom. It's a whole convenience store and everything. No toilet.
That's not up to code.
Not even a key with a hubcap attached to it? No.
Nope. The only room with a door was a employees only room, like a stock room. I'm sure they have a bathroom, but no public bathroom whatsoever. So I did not buy the gas.
I think the FBI needs to be notified.
I'll call them. Yeah.
The keys with the hubcaps, you don't see them anymore because they just get stolen by Latinos. So,
well,
yeah, it's gone the way of the
It's not
pay
true.
toilet.
That's an unfair stereotype. I don't think that's true.
If you insist.
You know, I used to
Why don't you see him anymore? Put 2 and 2 together.
I used to work at a place that got me going here where there was a key to get into the bathroom. So people would lose it all the time. And progressively over the couple of years I worked there, they would put it on a larger keychain to the point where they put it on a hockey stick. And now it wasn't a full hockey. It was probably like a third of a hockey stick with the blade.
You can fit that in your car.
Someone took it. I think it just became a game.
It's a challenge at that point. Yeah.
It was, instead of misplacing it, people were just stealing it just to do it, to upset people. So there you go.
Maybe chain it to the door.
Well, it was.
I don't know.
The bathroom wasn't in our facility. It was across the hall. So you had to leave the office, walk across the hall, and use like a shared community bathroom for the businesses.
Correct.
So there you go. All right. Well, hey, to Nick's immediate left, you on him. We got him.
I can have it every day, yeah. I can have it. Get out of my way, yeah, fuck you.
Put your hands together for the breakout star of the podcast medium. Chris Ellis here. Chris, welcome.
That's me.
What flavor we got on that Gatorade Zero today?
Oh, let me see. Berry. Simply berry.
That does not exist in nature.
No specific berry.
No.
Berry.
Color is kind of a pink.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, it's like goji berry. I don't know what that is. Well, welcome, Chris. I'm glad to have you here.
Yes, sir. So am I. I live here. Always a good thing to actually be on the premises.
That is good.
Haven't had the locks changed on me this week.
Haven't lost your keys. Haven't had them stolen.
It's not on the hockey stick.
No.
Well, welcome. And I don't know if you heard a fourth voice, but today joining us again, Meltdown from Detroit.
It's Meltdown. We know that he'll be back, just give him time. It's Meltdown from downtown Motown. We got that guy.
Wow. That's something.
Thick ankle, dog face, lying whore is what you are.
I don't know. Welcome, Meltdown.
You got a double intro this time.
Yeah, that's really something. I've never had walk-up music like that before. But, why do you have your brother's cape wrapped around you like some sort of, stripper threw that on you or something?
It's like it's my tribute to Antonio Inoki that I like to do for the podcast each and every week. I'm a dignified man.
Okay.
I wear a satin cape around my neck. I don't know exactly what I've earned, but I command respect with it. So he brings it to me each week.
And then I see Chris has this shirt on. What's up with that?
Well, at least
you're
he has
on the
a
show.
shirt on.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And secondly, I know you're a huge Wham fan, so I got my Wham Make It Big shirt on.
I got this. I got my Pot of Thunder shirt. I dressed.
Wow, thank you.
There you go.
Nice man.
The Wham shirt. Explain the Wham shirt, Chris, because it just doesn't. First of all, I can't even believe you have a Wham shirt.
Well, I was at the Gap outlet in Michigan City, and they had one of my size. It was like $4. I'm like, oh, I gotta have that.
Really?
So, yeah.
No, but one time I think I commented online that Wham.
You did.
What did I say? I can't remember now.
You were praising Seether's cover of "Careless Whisper,"
which is a good cover, yeah.
Yeah, and your line in the blog was the original is pop trash, in my opinion.
Wow.
Simply one of the most outrageous comments ever published on the internet.
And imagine the stuff
And
that is
so
out
ever
there.
since he did that, published that, which is at this point is like 5 years ago already. I've just been trolling his comments on social media. Every time he asks for suggestions for the 4 at 4, I try to drop in Wham songs, George Michael songs.
I'm not sure that everybody gets it, of course.
No, they don't. Well, half the people don't even. They put songs out there that don't fit the criteria.
Yeah, today I had bands from the Midwest, and people are putting Korn. I'm like, Korn's from California. I'm not sure how that's the Midwest. But
Right.
Well, is it just the fact that it's corn?
That's
Oh,
gotta
That's
be
got to
it.
be it. It makes no
Yeah,
sense, but yeah.
Well, I leave it to you guys to think about that because that never crossed my mind, but that could be it.
'Cause what are they from? Bakersfield, I think.
Yeah, they're from Cali, obviously. but,
Yeah.
Yeah, Bakersfield, the home of Kevin Harvick as well. So yeah.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because they're most meth heads are in the Midwest, and that's who listens to Corn. I don't know. That's another theory.
And your intro music, by the way, we didn't know you were going to be on until fairly last minute, so there wasn't time to record bass, unfortunately.
I'm just impressed that you had any intro music. I mean, nothing would have been fine, but now this is like it's pushed over the top.
No bass.
Are you insane?
It's one of the value adds we have on the show. That's how we differentiate ourselves. We do custom walk-up music for our guests, and you're on the list. So there you go.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I guess next time I'll expect more bass.
Mhm.
Well, I think we should add some bass because if you want to fill us in and all our listeners about your kind of expanding your broadcasting empire.
Ooh.
You've taken on some new work recently. Why don't you tell everybody what you got going on these days?
Yeah. So of course, Chris knows, WRIF is pretty, historic in the rock radio genre and the realm, I suppose. And I've been doing afternoon drive on that station for 16 years. Chris, I don't even know if you know this, but there's only 2 guys that have ever done afternoon drive on RIF.
Yeah, I knew that.
Okay.
Wow. 2 ever?
Yeah, in our 53-year history. Yeah, it's me and Arthur Benhall, the legend Arthur P. did it for 38 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so then about a month ago, I started on Hair Nation on Saturday nights on SiriusXM from 6 to midnight. And then Ozzy's Boneyard on Sunday nights from 7 to midnight after Duff McKagan's show. But I got some fill-in shifts coming up. So you're going to be hearing a lot more of me coming up here in the next month. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Very exciting. Good for you, man. Staying
yeah,
busy.
it's fun. It's fun that my father can listen to me now, back in Western New York. And I think the only way he would listen to me is if he got, in his car and was rear-ended and his radio dial accidentally went to one of the stations I was on. Because
That's the only way, huh?
yeah, I think he's only listening to the Elvis channel or something. So, but no, it's pretty cool. It's fun. I've had a lot of bands reach out to me and stuff, and it's fun to be nationwide like that. So
Yeah. We this will probably be the last time you come on our show. You're gonna big league us after this.
well, for
I
free.
wanted to get you on as soon as possible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this will be the last time for free, but that's it.
You're like the Marlon Wayans thing that was going around a few months ago. Where he
Oh, the
said-
podcast appearance.
yeah,
fee?
30 grand he'll come on.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't hear about that.
Yep.
We're almost there.
And then he was on Shannon Sharp's podcast like a week later. So there you go. There's your answer. 30 grand. So figure out your worth based on that.
Shannon Sharp better spend the 30 grand now because he ain't gonna have it pretty soon.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything else, but I could see more trouble coming.
Chris, I don't know if you talked about this on the show or if this was since the last show, but you saw Quarantine?
I've seen him a few times now. Yeah,
No, but did you see him like a couple days ago or something?
last weekend up in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you talked about it. How was that?
That was good. They were a 4-piece. Their second guitarist Joe couldn't make the gig, so they did it as a 4-piece. And they were great. Charlie's awesome. He knows how to fill in the sound without another guitarist. So yeah, it was great. Good time. It was only the second time I've been back to Milwaukee since I had my summer internship there in '89. So
That was Crusher Fest.
Crusher Fest, yeah.
Where was it at?
It was in South Milwaukee, which is an actual city. I didn't even know that. I just thought it was the south part of Milwaukee. But yeah, it was pretty good. Good time. Lots of salt of the earth types there. And
What do you guys think of Nick Jonas? He's supposed to play Paul Stanley. Did you guys see that?
I'd prefer it was Nick Jones playing Paul Stanley. He's got the body hair for it.
That's about all.
Just parade him through looking at torsos like a police lineup. Be like, okay, that guy. He could at least be the body double in some of the 80s scenes of the pure video decadence.
Swinging from a vine like Tarzan.
Yeah.
Nothing else really matters.
Visible thong strap over the left hip. He could pull it off.
I don't know what to make of that. I guess I'm just not excited at this point, no matter what the news is about this Kiss movie.
Yeah.
You don't care who's in it.
It could be Robert Pattinson, whatever. I don't care. He was Batman. He could be Paul Stanley.
Doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't matter. Like if it's a teen idol guy like that, it's whatever.
A purveyor of pop trash, if you will. What's your thought on it? You're an enemy of pop music, Meltdown. What's your thoughts about Nick Jonas?
I really haven't thought about him much, to be quite honest with you. I just saw this come up the other day. I don't know. I think I talked about it on Ozzy's Boneyard this weekend. It's like, who do you think should play the other guys? You know, who should play Gene? Who should play Paul or Peter or Ace? Or who should play Vinnie Vincent?
I don't think he's going to make an appearance. I'm sure that's
he's not
part of the contract.
Well,
There's
I think
no mention of Vinny.
From what I read, it only is supposed to cover the first. I think up until the Cadillac. Event.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's basically gonna be as far as it goes in the history.
Oh, that's interesting.
At least from what I've read. So
I've never been there. Chris, have you been there? Have you guys? Any of you guys been there to Cadillac?
No.
That's pretty far north, isn't it?
It's probably 3 hours north from here. But I got to get there. I saw that when last time your boys and Fozzy were here.
They played up there.
Yeah, they went. I saw pictures with them at Cadillac.
Yeah, and there's a big plaque over there by the school and stuff. So seems pretty cool. A pilgrimage of Kiss for a Kiss fan. You kind of need to go there at some point if you can make it. So
I know the last time I talked to Ace, he brought that up, but I think that's just like in his repertoire of stuff he brings up. You know, if he's talking to someone from Michigan.
Probably one of the last things he remembers too. So,
what teen idol would they bring to play Ace?
Who's the drunkest teen idol?
They all are.
Kesha playing Ace.
Yeah, a vintage Kesha. Yeah, that would be good.
Get her back on the sauce to play Ace Frehley in the Kiss biopic.
Women play Peter Pan all the time, right?
A black guy is a stunt double in Phantom of the Park.
I couldn't notice. I paused it and I'm like, that. I think that's Ace. I don't know. Looks just like him. I can't tell the difference.
Kesha's got her tits out tour or whatever it's called this summer.
Yeah,
that's what it's called. Wow. Okay.
A nice evening out with the family. The Tits Out concert.
That might be some pop trash I might have to go see.
Yeah. We're going to try and turn you around on pop music a little bit, Meltdown. Might have to start trolling your feeds with Kesha references for the rest of the summer.
I hope I don't blow it, but I think Father Figure is the song Chris is picking tonight.
I wouldn't do that to Meltdown. He would cut it off. He would leave. So, I mean, I want to do that to a guest at some point, but it's not going to be Meltdown. Actually,
I
Meltdown.
appreciate that. Hey, so by the way, so pop trash like Shakira, Christina Aguilera, and Kesha. I don't know if I could name one of their songs, but I would watch them on stage all night long.
Oh, absolutely, sure you would.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're no dummy.
This woman I work with flew to Washington, D.C. to see Shakira last week, and she canceled the concert.
Ooh.
It's a rough one. So, you get your refund on your ticket. But
probably,
but the travel and the accommodations.
Probably she's got some hip issues at this point. She's been doing that for how long now? You can't do that every night.
Yeah. She's got hip dysplasia like a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
But no, Meltdown and I did commiserate about the song choice. He wanted to make sure he didn't get blindsided by some Wham or something ridiculous. And so we came up with a good choice that I think will lead to an interesting and fun discussion. So Yeah.
Well, before we get into that, I see a baggie on
You
the
have a
couch.
baggie here.
Just a little something.
Who wants to eat
A little something.
Who wants to eat baked treats with me?
What we got in there?
So,
2 things. I want to grab that.
long story short, last week we had Jericho and Charlie on. Charlie being Peruvian. I brought up as I found out how to pronounce it, the lucuma fruit.
Oh,
So I bought a bag of lucuma powder recently.
Where did they have that at Walt's?
And Amazon, I ended up
Oh,
getting it.
okay.
I wish Waltz had it.
I wonder if they'd have that at Whole Paycheck.
But decided to make just kind of a basic little pound cake thing and
Yeah.
just throw some in there and see how it goes. So that's basically about all it is. But in honor of Charlie, our Peruvian friend, and really another thing that made me think of it is I was trying to think of something after Pope Leo got elected. I'm like, oh, he served in Peru. What's something that they eat in Peru? Came up with this. So
There you go.
wow.
and Charlie said a good ice cream flavor, so that might be happening in the near future as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did say. He said it was very popular. right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Chris already had it, or no? You tried
Not
it?
yet.
Oh,
No.
okay. Okay. I thought I heard.
So I hope nobody's allergic to lucuma fruit.
We'll find out today. We might have to cut it off early.
Yeah,
Fire
if
up the toilet.
People start passing out.
Yeah.
If Andy runs down the stairs behind him, there's a toilet
Yeah,
down there.
there is a bathroom on the premises here, unlike that gas station you were at.
It was a
before.
speedway too. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't see how that's up to code, but what do I know?
Yeah.
So you open. Hey, Chris, what was the word you told me to pass along to Jericho in my interview? I slipped in. What was that word?
Maelstrom.
Oh, Maelstrom. That's right.
Yeah.
Did you tell these guys about that?
I have no idea what's going on with that one.
Well, that was when we were when I went and saw Fozzy in Joliet at the Forge, where I Meltdown and I saw Brother Kane there a few years
That's right.
ago.
Yeah.
He was telling me that Joe in quarantine wasn't going to be able to make the shows in Wisconsin later in the month, and that's when I referenced that this guy was just putting out his classic 78 music, and suddenly Jericho slides into his DMs, and the next thing he knows, he's sucked into the maelstrom that is Jericho's world. He's like, maybe he didn't want to go to Milwaukee the weekend after Memorial Day, and just now it feels obligated because he's in the band. But that's how that originated. And so whenever Meltdown interviews Jericho, he texts me and is like, what should I ask him? And I go, I don't have any questions, just work the word maelstrom into
And I did, yeah.
into the
Oh, you did?
conversation, because Jericho got a kick out of that for some reason when I mentioned it in Joliet.
The first time I mentioned it just kind of slipped by, and he didn't like say or do anything. And then later I did say that I said, yeah, Chris L told me to drop the word maelstrom. He said, he always says, he goes, oh yeah, I forgot you guys were friends. And,
Well, Jericho does have a thing or two going on in his life.
oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Constant activity, but yeah, you want to get to it? I've got the information. I can do the song intro.
All right, what the hell? Let's find out what it is. Let's turn the microphone over to Chris Jericho.
All right, Hamill. This one's called
Midlife Crisis,
Off of
Angel Dust,
by the band.
Faith No More.
All right.
Andy perked up.
Did not expect this, but I've got a lot of questions.
You got a lot of questions, and Meltdown tells me he has at least one Mike Patton story.
I got two.
Yeah,
For sure.
got two for sure that you can tell them as we move along in the song analysis if you'd like, or you could tell them now. Whatever's up to you. But yeah, he was like I said, I wanted to make sure he didn't want to run screaming from the invite to come on the show. So I said, offered him the option to pick the song. and he mentioned this one right off the bat, and I go, that I think that's a good one. Andy will enjoy it, I think. Although I have vague recollections of you, Andy, saying this is not at the top of your list of Faith No More
No,
songs.
I like it. I think the thing we talked about was, I can't remember what song we were talking about, but it was when a bass player decides to do the pulsating root note for the majority of a song, and we didn't like it in whatever song we were listening to. I said that's one thing. The only thing that I don't love about Midlife Crisis is that it's boom, 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 boom. The whole song. Boom, 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 boom,
Well.
boom, boom. But hey,
That makes up for the lack of bass for my intro.
yeah, we could use that if it's in the right key.
And it's interesting that Billy Gould has a writing credit on the song.
Yeah, right. And that's boom, 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 boom. I'm trying to. I'm over here staying busy trying to find this. I'll just have to do it from memory. But I know we had a very brief discussion about this at one point, Meltdown. But there's an infamous incident that happened on the Angel Dust tour, where Faith No More, after a show, I believe, or after something, I forgot what the context was, but it was either it was an off day or it was after a show or something. But they made an appearance at a radio event in Buffalo.
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning here because
Yeah.
there's two stories I want to tell, and they both kind of collide a little bit. So
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this, but maybe the people out there watching and listening don't remember, but they toured with that Guns N' Roses Metallica tour.
Yes.
Okay. So the Angel Dust record came out in June of 1992, and I think they played in Buffalo. I think I've looked this up before, on July 12th of that summer. So it was Guns N' Roses Metallica with Faith No More opening up.
Mm-hmm.
And if my memory serves, that was a long time ago. They were in town like a day or two early. And so Mike Patton came to the radio station, and he was on the air with me like at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I asked him about that infamous Saturday Night Live thing. You guys remember that?
Yeah, where he goes in the fan.
Yeah.
He goes in the fan. So this is live on the air, and he starts talking to me about how, that John Goodman was the host.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, all I wanted to do live on the air is take the dinner platter I had and take a shit on it and send it over to his green room where I'm like we're on the friggin' radio,
What he forgets.
Yeah. And it's like, he didn't even it wasn't even like an oops thing. It's like, dude, he just said it like so loud.
Mm.
And so anyway, so he was like, okay, kind of weird. I don't remember much more about that interview. And then of course, they opened up for Metallica and Guns N' Roses. That's another story we're going to do some other time. So then what you're talking about, Andy, is that they came back, and I actually Googled the date. The date was October 1st, 1992. So they'd come back, and according to the story I saw, they were playing with helmets in another part of Buffalo. And so then they came by this radio station appreciation concert for, at the time, the sister station of where I worked, which was a classic rock station. I was on like the newer rock station. So Faith No More shows up, and this radio station event had Tommy Shaw and Billy Sheehan was there, and guys of that ilk. And I was talking to Billy Sheehan in the crowd. Faith No More, they were asked to go up on stage. So they go up on the stage, and as I'm talking to Billy Sheehan, somebody comes over, like his assistant, interrupts us and says, he's got his pants down. And that was the last time I talked to Billy Sheehan that night. I look up on the stage, and Mike Patton has this hockey jersey on. He's got his pants down around his knees or his ankles, and this hockey jersey is like halfway down his thighs. And what's the guitar player with the long beard and the long hair?
Jim Martin.
Yeah, Jim Martin.
He's taken the neck of his guitar, and he's like going up and down through on Mike Patton's crotch. And people start booing, and people start getting kind of aggravated, and they're just playing a song nobody's ever heard, and it's all crap. So then Mike Patton decides he's going to take the microphone and put it in his ass, which he does. And then he proceeds to walk around, like slowly walk around the stage, like kind of like a zombie, just walking around like this, like zombified. And people start like getting aggravated and booing. And he proceeds to take the microphone, out of his ass and put it in his mouth. That's when beer bottles started flying up towards the stage.
I hope it was an SM57 or something like that, because it's
Something skinnier.
yeah.
Mhm.
I can't recall exactly what it was, but around that time, at that point, like this is all happening pretty quick, and I'm just a young kid. I'm just happy to be there. And the band, they were swiftly escorted out the back. Apparently, he got caught, had to get stitches and whatever. And I seem to recall there was some sort of warrant for arrest for some of these guys for lewd and indecent
Wow.
or whatever it was. Are you
Mhm.
looking it up, Andy? Did you?
Yeah. There's like a couple pages in this book. It's a couple different things, but there's quotes from people who were there. Everyone was appalled. They wanted to get him off the stage. Mike got hit with a bottle, cut on the head, had several stitches. Yeah.
I think your guy Billy Gould said that he took the microphone out. I remember this. He took the microphone out of his mouth and just chucked it in the crowd. And I mean, we're talking a 1,500 person bar. The stage is probably 6 or 7 feet high, and he just launches this thing at somebody and just blasted someone with this.
Yeah, I thought that's what I was looking for, because I remember that being part of the story, that like firing it back at whoever.
And Billy Gould
Taking
said
the
that was
ball.
one of the things he'll never forget is the image of that guy getting blasted in the face or something like that.
Wow.
I wonder if it was even the right guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Never seen anything as sick and disgusting as this. So, it sounds more like, obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know what the vibe was, but it sounds like it was more just like aggressively stupid than disgusting.
Like they didn't want to be there, or what?
That's what
seems like. Is this like in protest? Like we're not taking it seriously?
Well, so they played a show, like I said, across the city, whatever. And then what happened was they showed up. And when they showed up, this girl, Heidi, who ironically enough, I still work with to this day, and she's one of the greatest people and just the best person. She asked him, hey, would you guys want to go on stage? And so I think they did. And because it's a radio station and they're too cool for the room and, the whole thing, they just decided to. I know that part of their song was 97 Rocks Suck My Ass. I remember them saying that.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder what happened here.
So that's if Guns N' Roses and Metallica are going on tour in the early 90s, the band you want that's going to be able to diffuse any tension or any problems, you're gonna want Faith No More, right?
Yeah.
Well, so that by the time this happened, this was October 1st, so that tour was over.
Yeah.
And that's like I said, that was the whole timeline of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
they had issues with Guns N' Roses too on that tour, though. So they were knocking them like in the press as they were opening for. It didn't make any sense.
Well,
but
people do that.
That's how people were back then, right?
Black Crowes did that to Aerosmith, didn't they?
They did it to ZZ Top.
Oh, ZZ Top, maybe.
What was their
I
issue?
thought Aerosmith. But...
Black Crowes, the ZZ Top tour was sponsored by a beer brand. I can't remember the specific brand, and they were just, over the mic and in the press were saying about how corporate sponsorships were lame and weren't rock and roll, and they just got straight up booted off the tour for that. So
corporate sponsorship is rock and roll.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
it really is.
You want to get paid. If you want to get paid, it is what it is. Right?
I mean, do you want to be on Dick Clark, or do you want to not be on Dick Clark's show?
Yeah,
I think a lot of attitude back then. You know how this was, Chris. It's like these guys, they wanted to be like, they didn't want to be in the corporate world. They wanted to, kind of be in this underground world, and it's like, it's kind of hard to verbalize, but you know what I'm talking about, Chris.
It's just, they want to be rock and roll rebels.
Want to be subversive,
right? But at the same time, it's like
you were in Bill and Ted,
right? You were hired. You're joining ZZ Top on a tour, one of the biggest bands in the world. I mean, put two and two together. Same thing with like I was talking about with Nirvana. When you signed to Geffen Records, okay, one of the biggest corporate record labels in the world, and you suddenly have a problem with the fact that you're selling all these records and jocks and mouth breathers are showing up to your gig. It's like, well, you're on Geffen, okay? Biggest label in the world at the time. You're label mates with White Snake, okay?
Yeah.
Figure it out.
But also, you probably don't imagine that it's going to work.
You don't imagine it's going to work, but you're still, at the end of the day, you're label mates with White Snake.
Yeah, it's possible.
So you're essentially on the same keel as White Snake.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah.
But I can imagine some of these bands just thought like, oh, well, maybe we'll be like the kings of our scene instead of crossing over into mainstream.
Right. And everybody's got that piss and vinegar on their way up, but eventually you got to play the game. Otherwise you're out of the game.
Well,
in the game.
Who was it, Chris, that they said they walked into their record label one day and all their pictures were gone? There was a picture of Nirvana. I think it was like Janie Lane or
I'm pretty sure it was Warren.
Yeah, it's one of those bands where they used to be behind the secretary when they walked in. Also, they were gone.
Yeah. Everything was gone. Nobody was, they were forced to wait in the lobby for 2 hours to talk to people. Nobody was returning their calls.
Right.
They were out.
That's I read a similar story that Nat King Cole called the Capitol building, and they said Capitol Records, home of the Beatles, and he's like, what? Like he basically built that thing, and all of a sudden it was that's how they answered the phone.
That's the business.
Yeah. All right, so this is 1992, like we said, first single off of Angel Dust.
I remember the video. Glad we're not watching it.
Yeah, I don't think we need to watch the video, do we, Andy? It's up to you. You're the FNM fanboy at the panel.
I don't think we need to watch the video.
Yeah,
but if I'm sure at the time when it came out, it was a little bit of a image shock, probably, if you watched Epic and Falling to Pieces, and then a couple years later you saw this. It's like, oh, okay, look a little different, sound a little different. What's going on here? So,
before we get into it, I want to double back to something that Meltdown mentioned. Maybe you can expand on it. But what exactly was Mike Patton's issue with John Goodman that he wanted to shit in his lunch tray? I mean,
I think it was another one of those things where John Goodman was, the corporate guy. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
right. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Hey, he's just like, I wanted to shit on this, silver tray and send it over to his room. I'm like,
you know what? Also, though, not that I know or anything, but just from reading so many of his interviews from that time, it seemed like every interview Mike Patton did around the Angel Dust tour, all he talked about was shitting. So it might have just I think he was just trying to be gross and didn't want to answer any real questions about what people wanted to ask him. So that was probably what it was. You asked him about Saturday Night Live. He was going to talk about shitting. So he's like, John Goodman. Yeah, I wanted to shit and on a tray and send it to him. So because everything is about shitting in that time.
I heard he had a proctology appointment and he actually was burned out on the subject and didn't go well.
He didn't have his maelstrom moment.
Yeah, right.
So I like the cover of the single.
I don't even know what the cover of the
pretty
single.
Pretty amusing, just like a stupid picture, but pretty funny. It's like some sort of Russian soldiers or something, and a very poor, I mean, it's early 90s, but a very poor Photoshop, if you will.
Their heads on
it. Their heads are like a little bit missized.
That's inside of Angel Dust.
It is
too. Yeah.
Pretty funny though.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In front of the Kremlin, it looks like. No reason, just something silly.
It's probably a Billy Gould thing. For some reason, Billy's very into the whole like Eastern European culture and Baltic culture and stuff.
Okay.
That's his thing.
Sure.
He's one of those guys who sells some kind of alcohol, and it's whatever they drink out there.
Probably got a lot of cuckoo clocks at home.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So there you go.
Pulsating bass lines resonating everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So this is track 3 on Angel Dust. Man, what a 1-2-3 punch up there against anybody's ever. Land of Sunshine, Caffeine, Midlife Crisis. Woo! cooking on the first 3.
They had another great song off this record too, which, not mistaken, became a hit.
Are you talking A Small Victory?
A Small Victory. Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I shouldn't say hit. It was played.
They had a video and it was played. Yeah, good song.
Yeah.
And also, Everything's Ruined had a little bit going on. That's the one with where they had no money left for video, so it's like the intentionally worst video ever made, or it's just a green screen with random footage the whole time. Like the band is standing in front of a green screen.
Oh, like it's like the old the Paranoid video.
Oh yeah, but I
Right,
mean,
the
it's
old-
just like stock footage of like, a bird or what. It's just any stock footage, just nonsense. That was probably like a couple $100 to do in some local TV studio in one afternoon.
Yeah.
Compared to A Small Victory, which is like a mini film.
Hmm.
So they used all their money on that one. One of those, I don't know what happened to Nick. Hold on.
It's all right. There we go. One of my ears went out.
I'm going to blame myself there,
thank
Nick.
you.
I'm sorry. But yeah, like the Without You video, one of those unnecessarily expensive videos is A Small Victory.
Like the Van Halen video from last week.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
All right. So anything else we want to talk about before we get into this?
I'm good.
No, I think
good.
we're ready.
All right. Well,
This is what the third Faith No More song we've done on the show.
Well, it's the second one off this album.
Yeah,
Jizz
Lover,
Lover,
and we did
Surprise You're
Surprise
Dead. Yep. So 3. Yep. All right. Well, let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Midlife Crisis. You think so far?
I always enjoyed those rim clicks that are added
Mm-hmm.
to the beat there. It's I mean, it's not Latin percussion or anything, but it's a little bit adventurous considering that it's, a hard rock song.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of what Mike Borden, he was, they always use the word tribal when they talk about his drumming. A lot of tom work.
A lot of African sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So maybe that's part of the inspiration or influence.
It's
to it.
a great memorable beat for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this the first single
Yes.
off the album? Yeah. So following Epic,
Mhm.
which was probably what was the
Falling to Pieces was the
the
second.
real thing was
The real
name of
thing,
it,
yeah.
So following that album, Epic, kind of a surprise hit. I think you can legitimately call that a hit.
Yeah.
And
Huge,
Falling to Pieces had some accessibility to it. It was kind of,
Mm-hmm.
had some hooks to it. This is just seems and other stuff that we've talked about already about just how they presented themselves in interviews and how they conducted themselves or something. It seems to me they made a conscious effort to be less commercial on this. Would you say that's accurate, Andy?
For sure. And I think this is, Mike Patton has more of a say in what's going on in this album. He had nothing to do with the first album he was on. As far as music, that was all written, and he just had to add lyrics and vocals to what they already wrote. So I'm sure they were going in a different direction, a little bit more, I don't know, darker, but also more artistic, more sniffing their own farts, if you will.
Sniffing their own microphone that they just shoved up their singer's ass. Usually that you don't get buy-in from the record label. I mean, if you got a surprise hit and you've had some success, they want more of that. So for them to sort of, because what label were they on? Epic.
They were on Slash.
Okay.
Warner Brothers Slash.
Still up there. I mean, it was a imprint of Warner Brothers, like you said. So I mean, that's pretty is about as big as it gets.
Yeah.
I wonder how much flack they took from the record company when they heard this. And
if I remember correctly, there was something where there was a concern from whoever was listening, like the hit isn't here. We're not hearing what we wanted, you know. The next epic isn't here.
Right.
But this isn't, I would argue this isn't all that different from Epic.
It's just a little, it's not as glossy.
Maybe
I mean, listen to the vocals
maybe
in
not,
that first
but,
section.
Maybe not, but all the same elements are there.
Yeah.
You know, you got the droning keyboard and just kind of like it's not maybe as funky, if you will.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's a whole lot different than Epic. I mean,
you could tell it's the same band.
Yeah, that's
but
what I mean. It's the same
shift.
band, and it's not that far removed.
it's not as in your face as Epic, and you know, it's the typical record company mook. This could be like, this is completely foreign to what they were expecting and wanting. So that's just kind of interesting. And also, you know, isn't Angel Dust regarded as a masterpiece amongst most music nerds or fans of the band?
Yeah, it is. I think for a lot of the, I don't know, the artistic merit, I don't know, people are so dorky about that stuff, but you know, they went out of their way to try to take the next step or whatever, push in a different direction, use a lot more. There's a lot of samples. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but that part of the drum intro is from Cecilia from Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's sampled in there.
Really?
Those are those clicks you were talking about there. Yeah.
And there's a Beastie Boys sample coming up too. But
yeah,
you know what's funny and interesting about this song is that it starts with that drum beat like that, and I'm trying to verbalize it, but like everything comes in then after that drum beat, like the singing, the guitars, the bass, everything. Where normally like it's like the drum beat, and then you got the guitars and the bass, and then the singer comes down. You know, a couple bars later.
Yeah. All together. Well, actually, I don't think the guitar. It was the keyboards and the bass and the singing. Yeah. There's like no guitar presence so far, other than that little whoop at the beginning. Just like a little volume thing. Whoop. That was it so far.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But this is a strange guitar album because it's like very absent at times and then very much there at other times. It's not like a straight through guitar album.
And is this his last album with them?
With Jim Martin, yeah. He was out after this. He did the tour.
Is he like a pumpkin farmer or something now or something?
So that's the thing that people always say, but I think that was true like 30 years ago for like a few years, that he was growing contest pumpkins, like largest pumpkin thing. I don't know if he bought a farm or something. But I don't think he's been actively farming pumpkins for a long time. But that is what he was up to, I think, into the 90s, you know, the mid and late 90s.
Right.
But every once in a while, he'll pop up with Infectious Grooves and do a show somewhere, like at South America, Infectious Grooves with Jim Martin.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was back active even on a limited basis.
Yeah, he'll pop up once in a while. It's interesting to see him doing something.
Yeah, when he left the band, they always said he was out of his gourd.
Yeah. Seemed like they were just not on the same page at all. Musically and as people, they were not. But I've also heard people say Jim Martin was one of those guys who was like, if you were in that scene, like San Francisco, he was just like a really strange, unique presence to be around. And probably, you know, I'm sure that's part of the appeal of the band at a certain time. Was like, look at that guy on stage, right?
Well, he dropped his guitar neck on Mike Patton's crotch, so I.
Yeah, I heard he was a little crazy. I heard that through the vine, if you will.
All right, everyone, think of pumpkin jokes. Ready?
I'm done. I'm punching out.
The seeds have been planted for more pumpkin jokes, I think.
All right. That's
Yeah,
Let's
enough.
squash that bit.
That's enough of that.
What a great chorus.
Yeah, it's big.
If you're, I mean, I don't know what a studio head thinks when they hear this, but when that chorus kicks in, you're probably thinking, all right, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that, they definitely redeemed themselves. Of course, the menstruation mentions are not mainstream, of course. So that's a little.
Well, he did say menstruating heart,
right? But
still,
still,
yeah.
and bleeding enough for two or whatever he said there.
Yeah.
But I mean, like sonically and the melody of it is pretty. It's got some legs to it.
Yeah, I could see if at the time Mike Patton was in like Hit Parader, like they have the solo photos of people, and I could see them being like, "Look, you were like the cute boy, and now you're trying to be this like gas station worker. You're talking about shitting all the time, and this is what the music sounds like. What are we doing? Like you're ruining." You're taking money away from everyone here by this shift in your image. So I could see that being a problem.
I guess
if you're investing in something,
I guess, but musically, if you were just musically looking at the first album and then you heard this, I don't think it would be like night and day where you're like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah,
you might say, okay, this isn't a carbon copy, but it's still on the same track.
Yeah, and plus this, this is what, midway through 92 when this came out.
Yeah.
So that's when, the whole Seattle scene, alternative rock, had taken over fully by that time. I mean, when late 91, when a lot of those albums actually came out, it took a while for them to get some traction. But by the time they arrived at mid 92, that was the thing. Like Meltdown said, the warrants were out. All the against the grain alternative stuff was in, so it's a little bit more palatable, I would think, just given the overall environment of what was going on. I mean, from a DJ standpoint, Meltdown, maybe not necessarily these guys. I don't know if you were playing Faith No More where you were working and playing stuff off the Real Thing and off of this, but just in general, when a band is established or they, hit the big time with something they did and then they go in another direction, what, like from your standpoint, is that, how hard is it to get on board with that? I mean, what do you do in that situation?
I don't know. We've seen that a lot. It's like, I could name 20 bands right now that put out monstrous records, made tons of money, and then they go and do something experimental. Mach 3 or whatever it is Spinal Tap did. It's like, I don't know. I played all these songs when they first came out. Epic was a gigantic song. Everybody remembers that video. That was like, an epic video, pardon the pun. But it's like, I don't know. When this song came out, to me, it's even still kind of a breath of fresh air. You don't really hear stuff like this that I can really recall. There's something unique about this song that I can't really put my finger on, and we're about to get into the part where it has like the I don't know, the electronic thing when it's like makes that noise. So it's just kind of cool. I don't know. I dig this.
Yeah. And before we move on, there's a lyric in the first verse that I always thought was cool, but I don't understand what it means at all. But he says, "My head is like lettuce. Go on, dig your thumbs in."
Yeah,
I don't know what he's talking
lyrically.
about.
I don't know that we'd be able to have much to speculate on here. I mean, I guess if it's just someone going through a midlife crisis, then
Yeah, I think
who
it's
knows? It could be any sort of.
well. I know
Is there
that
a pumpkin connection in there anywhere?
You try to carve that one out. But
Things,
Andy, I think I know what you were going to say.
things you grow for 200, Alex.
But I don't think I think I read earlier today, just because I knew we were going to do this song, that this song actually has nothing to do with midlife crisis. You know,
no.
at the time, 1992, Mike Patton, I don't know what was he, 26, 27, I don't know,
24.
24, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But
you know, I know a little bit about some of this song. I know that certain parts of it are a reaction to Madonna at the time.
Right. Actually, they called it Madonna. I read that.
Yeah. So it was like sort of, I think the I'm is first person for someone like her who's trying to stay relevant, even though times are changing, is kind of woven through here. But I also think some of these lyrics just sound weird and cool, and they don't, not all of them necessarily mean anything.
Well, we could go through song after song after song. I mean, like, just off the top of my head, Beck's Loser makes no sense at all. You're just throwing words up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
Or don't rhyme sometimes.
yeah. That whole album, from what I remember, just random stuff.
Yeah, so the time is ripe. Another pumpkin reference, but the time is ripe to just, you could put out stuff like this and it would be consumed because it was of the time, and that was what was going on. The overly commercial corporate stuff, even though this Nirvana and Faith No More was also corporate rock, but it just didn't sound like the corporate rock of the late 80s and very early 90s, and you could get away with stuff like this.
And don't forget the time too. Like I said, it's like this record comes out in June. They go on the biggest tour. You could arguably say it's still the biggest tour in 2025. The two biggest bands on the planet were Guns N' Roses and Metallica.
Wow.
They're opening up that show.
Yeah.
And who are the two biggest bands on the planet now?
Touring right now is Guns N' Roses and Metallica.
I mean, outside of like a band like a U2 or a Bon Jovi or something like that, but those are still the, and then it's like you're promoting this record, I don't know, I guess be a little bit more experimental. I don't know. I haven't dug into the record as much as probably Andy has, but this is a band. My brother loves Mike Patton, anything he does, his projects and whatnot.
So does mine.
Yes, you know the feeling. But it's like, it's one of those things where like he is kind of so bizarre and kind of out there, but in a way, it just kind of makes sense when he puts it together. It's tough to explain.
Yeah, it is tough to explain. And also, I think even like the producer was Matt Wallace. I remember reading something about him being like, Mike, this isn't gonna work. Like, because Mike wanted to do these, like, you can hear it in this song, but all over the album, like kind of odd harmonies, like not your typical notes that you would add to a harmony. And he's like, Mike, this isn't going to work. Like, that's off. And he's like, no, trust me. Let's do all the ones that I have in my head together.
Yeah.
And then they'd listen back and be like, damn, okay, you were right. That is perfect. Like, it's odd, but it works. And I think
I've heard that about Lemmy.
Really?
That he would do that too. That when he would go in to do harmonies, it wouldn't be what the producer engineer were expecting.
But he's like, just let me do it.
Yeah, he would do his thing, and it would would work.
Play it back, and they'd say, "Oh, okay." Because I think you typically would just do like the pretty notes or whatever. But he would have an idea and want to, I'm not saying I even know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to lay down the root, the second, and the sixth, or something.
Right.
And it's like
the stuff that, like, from a theory standpoint is the correct mathematical note to put in there.
Yeah. But
I mean, on that note, I would also say that, like, the vocal harmonies that Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell have in Alice in Chains are probably not conventional in terms of the intervals between the notes, but just they sound incredible together. So you don't mess with that once you hear it, and it's like, that's the thing. A lot of people come at it from from a mathematical or just strictly analytical standpoint.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's not going to work. But then you, like you said, you listen to it back. It's like, okay, that sounds great. Let's keep it. You know.
Yeah. But this part coming up, I think, is some of the more interesting stuff. And I'm not one of these guys. You know, Chris knows me. I'm like a meat and potatoes guy, but I want to hear guitars and drums and bass and guys singing. But this breakdown kind of sounds cool.
We've got another verse first, though, but then we'll be getting there soon.
Oh, we're not getting okay.
Yeah, it's coming now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we have more menstrual commentary coming our way, I think. Nick's favorite word, pinky.
He said, "Bending my pinky back."
Yeah, if that word is in the lyrics, it's an automatic sweet surrender for Nick. That's his favorite words to say out loud, and one of my favorite words to hear him say out loud. Yeah, I've obviously I've never paid any attention to lyrics, even if I wanted to decipher them. I don't think I could. So this is
there's some masochism in here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's, I mean, it seems to be an ongoing theme. It's not just the lettuce line with the dig your thumbs in or something like that. Now we've got,
is it like a circus geek thing almost? Like someone who's willing to do anything for attention, even though, like, you know, it's the attention is fading, so you keep going more extreme, and now you're, you know, cutting yourself or eating a whatever.
So it's more
animal.
It's more
eating a turd and sticking a turd in your mouth. That could be about stuff.
More of that talk.
Yeah,
it's so you're saying it could be more of a more for professional reasons than for
like a desperation to stay relevant. I don't know.
I guess, yeah, rather than some sort of
than for
perverse.
Yeah, it's a look at me. I'm shocking. I don't know. Or I don't know.
I mean, could be any or all of that.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Oh, what do you think? You like that breakdown section, Meltdown, huh?
I like it, but I like it more. I like more when it comes into the chorus, where it's just so they just pound with that chorus.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it kind of builds and builds and builds, and then you just bring it into it. And you know, we're gonna get into some more of that coming up here. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think the breakdown is it's kind of interesting. I don't know. It's kind of like a different flavor.
It's odd.
I'm not losing my mind over it, but it's like
Sure.
it's just something that's kind of unique. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, when he first texted me, when Chris texted me about coming on, this was the first song I thought of, just because I don't know, I really dig this song, and I think there's just a lot of elements in it that seem to strike a chord with me.
Yeah, and like you said, that's a sample from a Beastie Boys song from a couple years before.
Yeah,
no idea why they thought that fit together, but it does.
Yeah.
Well, the Beastie Boys were another band that, when they first album License to Ill, they're just like, seemingly this just bunch of fucking frat knuckleheads, with inflatable penises on stage and, just mindless, dumb party music. And then they come out with Paul's Boutique, which is like incredible hip hop album with known for how many samples are on that album. Talk about going away from the formula that you established on your first album, and the record company wanted that more of that just stupid party music.
Yeah.
And they came out with Paul's Boutique. That's setting the precedent. I think the early, when the 80s became the 90s and bands were doing this and getting away with it, it was, how could you not think that's pretty liberating?
I think from a creative standpoint, I just interviewed Johannes from Avatar. I don't know if you guys are Avatar fans or anything about them, but he kind of went out of his way to specifically state that this record sounds different than anything they've done. And I think from a creative process, a lot of these guys, at least some of the guys like a Mike Patton, they don't want to do the same things they've done. Some bands are probably okay with that, but I think that Mike Patton guy, he's creative. He's in all these projects, Tomahawk and all this other stuff, and they all sound different.
Yeah.
And, and I think that some of these guys, they don't want to get stale, or they're just so creative and their juices are flowing. And who knows how many drugs they're partaking in. I'm not saying any of these guys were, but you don't know.
Yeah.
Well, but to me, that's part of the whole reason to do a solo project or an offshoot project, is it should sound different from your main band. It's like that always confuses me when, guys do a solo album or they have a side project, as musicians like to call it, and it sounds exactly like their regular band. It's like, what, these songs couldn't have worked in the context of your regular band? Why do you need this separate outlet for this music? It just...
Well, you guys did all the Kiss songs, so like
we did.
So, was there different eras? Let's just say just the original for the original four from the beginning. You look at a band like Metallica, and to me, there's these different eras, and the records are different.
Sure, yeah.
You get into the Black era, the Load era, Saint Anger, which I'm definitely not a fan of, but it's like but they put out records that are different from each other throughout their entire career.
Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side, you just saw them in Detroit with AC/DC. It's like the same formula. It's like, different musicians and bands are different, but yeah, that's Metallica. You gotta give them credit for just trying different things and doing different things, and you can't accuse them of stagnating. That's for sure.
Yeah. I saw an article the other day. I didn't read the whole thing, but the headline was something along the lines of Metallica's big misstep, the Load era. And I was thinking, I wouldn't call that a misstep. I mean, I guess if you want to go back and say Master of Puppets is the ultimate masterpiece, then I guess everything else is a misstep. But I remember them being huge. I don't remember. I mean, yeah, there were, but people were mad at them about the Black album already. So, I mean, they couldn't keep all the fans happy anyway at that point. But I would say when they got some bands, when they evolve, it really, like, they break through. It must be like a Sydney or the Bush kind of a situation. And some bands really thrive. And I think Metallica did. I don't think that was a misstep at all.
Well, the Black record, that put them on a different plane, and that was 1991. Then, like we just talked about, that tour that followed. I mean,
What do you think of this? Jerry Kern said Lulu was a misstep.
Well, that was
Lulu was just we have Lou Reed willing to do an album with us, so we'll do it. It doesn't matter how good it is.
I mean, yeah, and we can do whatever we want here. And
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
That's
you not even really count that.
I wouldn't count it personally.
I don't count it, and I've never even made it through that entire record. The music on the record's awesome. The songs are terrible.
Right. But the thing about the Black album is, you know, they were never claimed to be like Nirvana, who were surprised by their success. Lars heard Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
And he's like, who produced that album? We need to sound like that. And they consciously were like, look, we're gonna shoot for the moon with this one. We're gonna make the biggest, heaviest sounding album we can possibly make. And it was seismic in its popularity, but they went into it consciously wanting to go down that road, and they succeeded. They hit the jackpot on that one.
Well, like Jason said, he goes, yeah, some people call us a sellout. We sell out every seat and every seat.
Right.
And they still do.
Wasn't that on the Behind the Music?
It was.
And he did some kind of hand
Yeah,
gesture.
he did. He did one of these.
Which I don't even know why that hands together
But
means.
It's,
But he
apparently it's brilliant because
Yeah.
we both remember it all these years later.
Sell out every yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're playing Tampa Bay tonight. They probably just finished up a little while ago.
Oh yeah, Chris.
Yeah, Jericho's there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wow, yeah. I'll tell you, if you guys, if Andy and Nick, have you guys seen Metallica live?
Yes.
It's been years, but yeah.
I saw them once in 1996.
Okay, so you saw them on the Low Tour. Was that the one with Corrosion of Conformity, or was that before that?
It was Lollapalooza tour.
Oh, okay. So you didn't see them on their own tour.
I saw the COC tour. Yeah.
Yeah, where the stage fell apart and stuff.
Yeah, and they did Am I Evil with the light bulbs and everything. Yeah, that was
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
I remember you told me about that. I still can't even imagine. Like, it didn't make sense to me then, and it still doesn't really. I can't visualize exactly what it. Yeah, I'm sure I could find it on YouTube. Now. I remember Nick came home and was trying to explain it to me. I'm like, I don't really understand.
I have a
but
clear image of James kind of hopping over a little pyro thing, like kind of playfully, you know, kind of pointing to the incident that he had where he got burned. You know, a lot of really cool stuff in that stage production.
Well, my first thought was that I'm going to have to be on radio stations all over the country because Metallica's stage just blew up. This was before the internet. Nobody, you
didn't know it was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going here. Cool. He's singing the two different parts at the same time, and it works beautifully together.
Yeah, that's a nice musical trick.
Sort of like a Tony Iommi guitar solo from early days, where you got two guitar solos that are like 80% identical, and then the other 20% they're just different notes going on, but it sounds great, you know. Versus like a Randy Rhoads where he triple tracked it exactly the same. So yeah, that's I never really noticed that before.
That's cool.
It's like Hey Jude over here.
Playing it out. I don't care.
Still going.
Can't tell you how many times I listened to that in the 1990 Toyota Corolla. Countless times. Taking me back. Oh,
you ever play it in the Manatee Mobile?
Oh, sure. But I'm just thinking a specific time where this was my number one thing to listen to. It would have been that. It would have been pre-Manatee Mobile.
The song or the album?
The album.
Or both? Or?
The album. probably the height of my patent obsession would have been like 2001, 2002. So yeah.
So when you discovered this later after it came out, or
No, but that's just when I had constant rotation of basically anything I could find that he did. That's also a year when he put out like 5 albums. The Tomahawk album, Phantomas director's cut, Lovage.
Lovage, I remember that.
There's a couple. Yeah, there might be 1 or 2 more, or I'm exaggerating, but there's a lot in this short period of time.
I love his voice, man. His voice is so. There's just a lot going on in his voice.
Yeah, he's got an interesting voice, and apparently, at least back then, just could do it, and no one knew why or how he could do it. Like the guys in his band who were learned musicians were like, why are you able to write music when you don't know how to write music? Because he didn't know how to play anything, and these guys were like reading charts and everything.
Right.
He could just figure it out, like how to write a melody and use all the right notes, and
that's the guy. That's the guy that you want,
and then hit all the right notes.
Yeah,
but some people can just do it. It's like second nature to some people, I guess. But it's time to vote. Sweet Surrender or Kick in the Crotch. Meltdown, you brought it to the show. You first. Sweet Surrender or Kick in the Crotch?
I mean, it's got to be a Sweet Surrender from me. This is probably one of my favorite Faith No More songs. And not that I'm a learned Faith No More fan like you are, but I don't know. There's just something about this song I really like. This record, actually, that I have listened to this record, but it's like there's just some unique, interesting stuff on it that I kind of enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sweet Surrender.
Hell yes.
Who's next?
I'll go next.
Nick.
I'll give it a very sweet surrender.
It's Sweet Surrender.
Hell yes.
And I gotta say, I know Faith No More, I don't know if you call them purists, but super fans.
Yeah.
Would you say that they favor the or the post Jim Martin era? In a lot of cases,
I think that most people favor Angel Dust if you're like a purist,
because it's kind of a bridge between the two eras.
Yeah,
I gotta say, as I enjoy a lot of the stuff they did without him,
mm-hmm.
but having him there,
mm-hmm.
it's like it's complete, and it just they have great songs without him, but there's something incomplete about it sonically to me until we get to Album of the Year, and the first single is Last Cup of Sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's not playing on it, but you had it sounded like Jim Martin was it was the Jim Martin Faith No More again.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was 2 albums after Angel Dust before they had their like 17-year break between albums or whatever it was. So, and both albums have different guitar players. So, they never really got in a groove with a guitar player again after that.
I mean, and there's a lot of great stuff all in all the different eras, all the different albums. But to me, Faith No More is it's the complete package sonically when Jim Martin's in it. I love it when it kicks in and you hear the big guitar chords that he's playing in this.
Yeah, I agree with you. Who wants to vote, Chris?
Yeah, Sweet Surrender.
It's Sweet Surrender.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I too am not a Faith No More fanboy like someone in this room is, and I've never purchased or owned a Faith No More album, but like the radio hits I like to hear, and Nick actually just verbalized my exact thoughts that just something about Jim Martin's approach. He's one of those guys who's like, I mean, I wouldn't say he was like a bit player. He was just so visually striking, especially in the Epic video. But sonically, when you listen to what he was doing, it was like, I'm totally on board with Nick. It's just like, I need that for it to be Faith No More to me. We talk about all these guys like Steven Adler and Guns N' Roses, Mike Starr and Alice in Chains, Muzz Skillings and Living Color, just people who are like, okay, they're bit players and they get replaced and the band carries on and the band is still great, but it's not the same as it was when that one guy was still in there. And it's like when the band replaces him and carries on, he gets relegated to this being a bit player when in fact he was just crucial to the nuance of what made them so appealing right out of the gate, at least for me, and then like all those other guys that I mentioned. So I think he falls in that category, even though I think he was a little more, certainly a lot more than a bit player visually early on. And but yeah, what he brings to the table sonically, you can't replace it.
Yeah. And also I think that he being in the band, looking how he looked and playing what he played, appealed to a metal crowd.
Yes.
And kind of, bridged that gap too, because without him, that's not really what they were doing.
And then you find out he was in a band with Cliff Burton, and then it's like, oh, okay.
When he had the Cliff Burton t-shirt on in the Epic video. And yeah, I mean, it's just especially as a guitar player, it's like you gravitate towards that, and it's like that you become familiar with the first two Faith No More albums, and there's that element there that you want to continue to keep going forward. And then he's out, and just the guys they brought in, probably consciously, but wanted to do their own things and do something different. And it's like, I kind of miss that guitar playing there.
Yeah. So. I'm giving it a Sweet Surrender, of course.
It's Sweet Surrender.
Hell yes.
Got a million good things to say about this song and about Angel Dust. I don't know where to start, but we could just keep talking about Jim Martin for a minute, because I do think it's interesting that he was in that world. Like, he was in a band. It was him and Mike Borden and Cliff Burton were in a band together. So, he was part of that metal scene. Both of those guys were part of the metal scene of San Francisco at that time.
That's huge cred with the metal community, obviously.
It doesn't get any huger than that. Cliff Burton is a god in the metal community, obviously.
Yeah. But did any of you guys hear that interview on why can't I remember the guy's name? That show, oh God, he's a comedian, but he's a San Francisco guy and does that metal show.
Ryan Posehn?
No.
From not the guy who does the prank phone calls, the other guy, right?
No, neither of them.
Oh,
You're not talking about Florida.
Dean Del Rey.
Oh, Dean Del, yeah.
Dean Del Rey did an interview with Mike Borden recently, which is the only interview I've ever heard with Mike Borden, other than like an old Faith No More like band interview or something. But that was interesting. He was talking about all those early days things. So if you're interested in the origins of what it was like back then, like the thrash metal San Francisco time, and the early and mid 80s and all that, they talk about that quite a bit, because both of those guys grew up there and lived through it. So they're sharing all their memories from different clubs and who was around and everything.
Yeah, I recently talked with Tom Hunting from Exodus, and he said that that whole region, that era was very like incestual. There's a lot of bands.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking of all the guys that were out there. I remember Dave Ellefson was walking through the radio station with me one day, and he saw a picture of Kiss, and also he starts telling me a story about him and Kerry King when they were kids. It's like, it's crazy. They all grew up together.
Yeah, that's it.
Arenas.
Yeah, that's kind of what they were talking about. They all knew the same people from back then. Yeah. And one other interesting tidbit was, I don't know if you saw this. This was the headline that everyone grabbed. It was Mike Borden saying that Mike Patton went from not being able to perform with Faith No More to not being willing to perform with Faith No More. So that's where they stand right now. Yep. So doubtful that we'll see that happen again. Who knows? But
yeah, that's Mike Borden too. I mean, just to play with Black Sabbath, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's got, at some point you got to, if you're him, you got to be like, is this really happening? It's like the same thing. I talk about them crooked vultures. Dave Grohl sitting on the drums. He looks over. It's fucking John Paul Jones on the bass. Like, how do you not just stop and be like, is this really happening?
Dude, I interviewed them. My picture's right over there. Maybe I'll go grab it off the wall. But I have Dave Grohl and Josh Homme sitting on this side of me. And the whole time I'm thinking, that's friggin' John Paul Jones sitting right here.
Yeah.
I can't listen to anything they're saying.
I know it. I'm just like, holy crap. And then I watched John Paul Jones walk through the lobby of this hotel. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody here knows that guy was in goddamn Led Zeppelin.
Right.
Just blending in, huh?
Yeah.
He had a flannel shirt on. Nobody knew who he was.
Yeah. That's amazing that you interviewed those guys, because that's what I always point to, because I don't care what level band you are. At some point, the members of the band have to get together in a rehearsal room of some sort and bang out the material. If you're in them crooked vultures, whether you're Josh or Dave or the other guy, in a 20 by 20 room cranking out rock and roll, and you look over and your bass player is fucking John Paul Jones, how do you just not stop at some point and be like, this is not happening? I've been drawn into an alternate universe here. How is this happening? So just that's amazing stuff.
Chris, you've been here in my rock room, right?
I have been, yes.
So I've got hundreds of pictures on the wall. I always stop at that one when somebody comes in. I go, you know who that is?
That's the one.
Yeah, I was sitting across from a guy from Led Zeppelin. I mean, that's just it's not even reality. It's just
He's gonna get it.
So crazy to even think about.
But did they do one album? Was it just
they did a couple?
Did they do more than one? Yeah. Okay. I just remember them playing on Saturday Night Live or something.
Yeah, I thought they only did the one, but I don't know.
They did two.
Oh wow, let's see this.
Yeah, I mean, there he is. He's fucking, look at that.
Also, why does he look as young as everyone else in the photo? That's kind of weird. How did he pull that off?
It's he got in on Jimmy Page's deal with Aleister Crowley, some sort of pact with the devil.
That was in 2009, before the Red Wings opening game in October of 2009. I went to the Red Wings and went to watch them play that night. So,
oh wow, cool.
Back to back. Where was their show?
Their show was at the Fillmore downtown, which
nice.
Yeah, about 3,000 seater.
Yeah, nice venue.
Very cool.
It's so funny you bring it up, Chris, because it's like I remember that vividly, thinking to myself, yeah, these guys are really cool, but holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, when you're my age or Meltdown's age and stuff, and if you've seen The Song Remains the Same at the midnight show, and Zeppelin was just these, fucking they're not even human beings, really.
Yeah.
And then you're in the same, you're sitting 2 feet away from these guys, or like, Josh and Dave playing music. You're in a band with this guy. It's just like, that's just bizarro stuff.
One of the craziest things about that day was I wanted to get that picture, and all I really wanted to get was John Paul Jones, that picture. I mean, Dave Grohl and Josh are cool as well, but John Paul Jones, he said something along the lines of, oh, you want me in the picture? I'm like,
what are you talking about?
Yes. The short answer to that question, yes, we'd like you in the picture.
I think on the outside, I said, yeah, please. And on the inside, I'm like, hell yeah.
Was he like a pretty unassuming, cool guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's weird how I don't know much about him, but I haven't heard a ton. But you always hear Robert Plant is very cool from anybody who meets him. And apparently he's everywhere, just in random places. Like, oh yeah, Robert Plant hangs out at this bar sometimes. Like, what are you talking about? Some random place. Yeah. Oh, Robert, didn't Bev tell us Robert Plant comes in and buys pet food at the place she works at?
She sees him all the time.
He's just like a normal, cool guy who's polite to everyone. Why he could act however rude and ridiculous as he wanted to, and people would probably let it slide. But no, he's just a normal, cool dude who likes to hang out.
Well, and those guys, they set the bar for rock and roll excess in the 70s. I mean, just go down the list, every stereotypical thing you can think of being in a rock band, the biggest rock band in the world, they did it. And now they're just, regular.
But you think it would be hard to go
unassuming
back
guys.
to regular?
Eh,
A lot of people have a hard time
It's-
with that.
yeah.
A lot of other musicians and entertainers.
no, that's I mean, well, one of them died, so he never got the chance to do it.
yeah.
That's when they end up at rehab, right? But
Right.
someone told me one time the coolest guy in the room is always Billy Gibbons, and that's true. I've been in the room with him, and he's Billy Gibbons is pretty damn cool when he's in the room.
Yeah, I actually happened to the band I was in. We were playing some shows down in Texas, and we went to this Ice House bar in Houston, and he was in there just in the bar drinking. And you just see that hat, and you're like, "Holy fuck, it's Billy Gibbons over there." And he's just
Just
hanging
having a
out.
night out.
And they were huge at that. That was, I mean, a little bit in decline from the 80s heyday, like mid 90s. But I mean, you see that hat and the beard, and you're just like, holy fuck, it's Billy Gibbons. Just some random place we walked into. I don't even think we even went up to him at that point. But, it's just
cool.
sitting there hanging out,
He puts his glasses on before he takes his picture with you.
Right. Yeah.
No pictures without glasses.
He's great, man. He was awesome.
It is funny, like on that one, I can't remember what it's called, that ZZ Top documentary from a few years back.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You see old photos and you're like, oh, they have eyes.
Yeah. They have chins.
Yeah. They have regular facial features.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Frank, the man without a beard.
There you go.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Is he back on the road with them? No, right?
I
I don't know.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. That guy,
He's got some health
he's been-
issues.
He's
right?
been pretty frail for a long time. I was frankly surprised he was able to do it even as recently as he's done it. But yeah,
And those guys are what, 60 years?
yeah, late 60s.
Wow.
They
Yeah.
started.
And I always forget, what was the band that I think Dusty Hill was in? It was like they did it was like a knockoff. I want to say the Animals. It was some band like that, where for a U.S. tour they just got 4 guys together and said, "This is the Animals,"
Really?
and sent
Yeah,
them
I
off on a
remember
tour.
that,
I
yeah.
think it was them. There's some interesting story out there. I always forget what band it is though.
I remember that. Yeah.
So
Some
they
sort
just
of-
like duped some
Some
promoters?
kind of counterfeit band. Yeah.
Yeah, they just fucking use the brand equity of the name to promoters commandeered it and just put together a bunch of ringers.
Back when you couldn't really prove it wrong. You just said, yeah, that's
Oh,
us.
Right.
it's the Zombies.
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 with Beard actually. So Frank Beard was in it with them. They were in the
fake zombies.
a fake version of the Zombies.
Were the real zombies not around? Like, or they just did it at the same time? Information traveled slowly so you could pull that off?
I think so. I'd have
Wow.
to go back and reread the story.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, it's the Zombies, and people are like, yeah, I guess it is,
We don't know what you look like anyway.
but it obviously wasn't.
Yeah, you could have left the show and not known, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
At the time, you probably, if anything, you would have seen them on like whatever you said, Dick Clark's
Ed Sullivan.
or something.
Or if you had the album,
right,
maybe you saw a picture of them, but
yeah,
who knows?
yeah. All right, well, hey, we have to vote again.
All right, Hammond, I got a question for you.
And do some rim clicks on the microphone. It didn't work. My ouch. Paul Stanley wants to know if Midlife Crisis is a rock and roll boner. It's voted by the 4 rock and roll boners here today.
While we're thinking that over,
Mhm.
wanted to ask Meltdown. Faith No More is a band that you probably could hear on both the Boneyard and Hair Nation, right?
Probably not Hair Nation.
No, you don't think Epic or Falling to Pieces could make an
Nah.
appearance? No.
That's more like the Cinderella, Dawkins, White Snakes, the World, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But Ozzy's Boneyard plays a lot of heavier stuff, a lot of thrashier stuff, obviously, and the hair bands, so they it's a little bit bigger of a wheelhouse.
Ooh. My vote's in. We have to vote here. Unanimous. Rock and roll boner or no boner.
I think my vote's in.
Mine's in.
Meltdown.
Yep.
Your vote's in. Okay. Well, who wants to vote first? What's the order going to be? Let's establish an order here. How about I'll go first. Nick, Chris, Meltdown.
All right.
Okay. Rock.
And
Roll.
Boner.
we did it. I was doing that little arpeggio thing for Round and Round today, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like Rock and Roll Junkie.
Is it the same thing?
Well,
pretty
no,
much?
but it's got that like 3-note
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is,
repetition like that leading into it.
And
Wow.
by the way, I didn't pick this song. Well, I do like the song, but I've always wanted to get in here and talk about those stories with Faith.
Yes.
Chris and I have talked about that for a long time. I know, Andy, you're a fan
Mhm.
of Faith No More. So, if you guys didn't like it or whatever, that wouldn't have hurt my feelings. But it's like, I just think it's kind of like I said before, unique song, it was kind of a different kind of album like that. And it definitely a different time period. Because like Chris was talking about, I don't know if you guys really remember this, but I got into radio in 1990, and I'm all about, playing the hair bands, all this other stuff. And I was just telling somebody the other day, the first time I ever played Smells Like Teen Spirit on the radio, people hated it. And
Really? Did they call in or what?
yeah, so what happened was I was doing a feature on the show called like Jam It or Jerk It, something along those lines.
Okay.
And I played it, and people just were like, it was like a college band, it just
Mhm.
people just despised it. And I'll bet you it was in 6 months later that band was selling out every arena, and it was just it was a crazy time because you think about those records that came out in 1991. I think within a couple months of each other, some on the same day. The Black Album, the Use Your Illusion records, the Chili Peppers, the Nirvana, Soundgarden. I mean, like all these records came out that are now like, just masterpieces, monstrous and seismic shifts in music at the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's really cool that happened, but it's also interesting that that's still, if you're into music that sounds like that, that's still like the time period you go back to and say what you just said. It's not like, oh, well, yeah, but then also this year or, 5 years ago, it's still 1991. Like that's
in my 35-year career, I can't think of a year or two that can parallel that. I can't. Can you, Chris?
No, I can't. I mean, the only thing I can point to is the late 70s when I was 11, 12 years old and Van Halen came out and just changed the whole kind of scope of hard rock at that point. But
was there another album in 78 that was a companion piece to it that was as big? I'm trying to think. 78.
Well,
when did Boston go?
Boston was in 1976, I think, and as I talk about it all the time, just from a production standpoint, from a sonic standpoint, that just changed the game in terms of how big rock albums sounded. But just just the whole, how everything just pivoted when Van Halen came out.
Which one did you say, Meltdown?
When did this Destroyer come out? Was that 76 or
76? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, Chris, I hear what you're saying with Van Halen, and Van Halen obviously, but when 1991, 92 hit, a genre came in and destroyed another genre.
Yeah, that was it was a complete seismic shift, like you said, and the earliest indication I could see of that, like I always talk about, in the mid to late 80s, I was the entertainment editor of the Michigan State University campus newspaper, so I would get albums from all the labels to review. When Nothing Shocking by Jane's Addiction landed on my desk, and I usually they sent everything to us in vinyl. That one came in cassette for some reason. I don't even know why. but I just remember looking at it and like the press kit and the look of the band, and then since it was on cassette, I could just pop it in my car when I was out of work, and I was like, okay, this is definitely different than the LA Guns and the Dawkins and all the other stuff. And it's like something's amiss. The seeds of change are in the air. And that was the first thing I heard, first indication of that I heard. And then I would say Facelift, Alice in Chains, but in that heavy radio play on WRIF back when it came out in 1990. I was still in Detroit then, and then, like you said, I think the week I landed in Chicago was when Nirvana, Nevermind, and Blood Sugar Sex Magic came out on the same day.
Was that like September?
Third week of September, 1991.
Wow. And
everything just, I mean, it took a while. It wasn't an instant pivot, but everything changed at that point. And yeah, I can't point to another just completely just everything was altered by what was going on. And yeah, it was exciting.
What about this? Jerry Kern says 9 Inch Nails was 1988. Did that get on your radar? Was that Pretty Hate Machine was 88?
It must have been. That's the first album, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that was really, that never really landed on my radar. I mean, I would point to like Zodiac Mind Warp was the a band that sort of was kind of weird and different that came out around that time, that I along in that genre of music that I would point to and be like, well, this is different, but they never got any traction like Nine Inch Nails did, obviously.
Well, and plus 9 Inch Nails, like, I mean, I don't remember Pretty Hate Machine when it came out, but I mean, once like Closer came out,
then everyone went backwards.
Then it was. Yeah, I think so. I think it was one of those situations. Kind of. Well, I guess maybe not. I was going to parallel it to Nirvana because they obviously had release before Nevermind, and people went back.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had Incesticide, which is another thing that they did to give people that they can go back and kind of capitalize on stuff that they'd done before. But
yeah, Closer was 94, I think, if memory serves. And then you go back and you start, looking at all those records and stuff. But yeah.
And that was the thing about Alice in Chains when Facelift came out. Again, it was 1990.
Yeah.
It was like that was the first of those the big four albums to really come out. I mean, I think Bleach by Nevermind or by Nevermind by Nirvana was out, but it wasn't getting any airplay. It was it was like a college band alternative rock thing. Alice in Chains was Man in the Box was an instant hit on Album Rock Radio, and that wasn't like it wasn't a jarring thing because it sounded like all the bands that were popular at the time. It was the you could tell the subject matter was a little darker, wasn't talking about tits and ass and stuff like that, but sonically it blended in because it was heavy, guitar heavy, sounded great on the radio. But yeah, when everything else came out later in 91, and then the second Alice in Chains album was like everything was just like completely down a different road.
Wasn't Alice in Chains, weren't they on tour with, was it the Clash of the Titans tour?
Clash of the Titans, yep.
Which was what, Megadeth and
Anthrax and
Slayer.
So it was basically like the big four thing that happened many years later, but without Metallica.
Right.
And Alice in Chains would have been the new band. They were probably the first
they were
of the four to play.
Yeah.
So I wonder how they were received by that.
They were not well received.
It wasn't good.
So they were like in between the two worlds, kind of like they didn't fit into either one.
But that's interesting because a few years later, Headbangers Ball was Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, essentially.
Right.
Well, it's funny you bring it up because Dave Ellison just told me the story about how Alice in Chains ended up on the Clash of the Titans tour. he said they were opening up for Megadeth or something overseas, and they had never seen the band, whatever. But Dave's like, "What's this Alice in Chains band?" And I guess he said him and Marty Friedman watched one night, and they were blown away. And they called their management and said, "We got to get this Alice in Chains band out on tour for the
Wow.
Clash of the Titans." And Jerry Cantrell told me one time, word for word, he said, "That's where we earned our bones." Because as you were saying, Andy, it's like they would go up on stage and Lane Staley would be singing in his microphone like Cartman with it, or whatever it was. Southgate,
Yeah, Kenny.
Kenny, yeah. Because they were getting pelted with stuff.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, they were not well received. And Alice in Chains also opened for Van Halen
Yeah.
on the Fuck tour.
Yep, that's right.
So it's like they were doing the ultra heavy stuff and then opening for Van Hagar.
And what year was that?
It was like 90, 91.
So right around the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right
Didn't
after the first album came out.
didn't they take over for STP?
I was just
in
thinking to
the
see
opening spot for Kiss on the reunion tour.
They opened at Tiger Stadium.
Stadium, yeah.
But by that point, I think you would probably be glad to see Alice in Chains because you were
Yeah.
familiar with them by '96. But
Yeah, and they were, yes.
but a few years prior, it's like
Right. They would have been completely unknown. But 96, they were obviously.
I talk about this on my Ozzy's Boneyard show this weekend, but Jerry Cantrell, he told me about that show one time. I asked him about it. He said Lane Staley looked across the crowd and everyone's got their faces painted like Paul and Gene and whatnot. And he said Lane looked over at me and says, "How come no one's dressed like us?"
that's funny.
Never forgot it. And Jerry has this like guttural laugh, and he goes, "Man, that guy was so funny," And but yeah. So, Chris, do you remember the first single that Alice in Chains ever released off Facelift? Or
Was it We Die Young?
Exactly. Yeah, "We Die Young" was the first song I ever played off that record from those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the opening track on the album.
That's a heavy track.
Yeah, it was great. And it was like Skid Row went down that road with Slave to the Grind. And it's like, okay, this is heavier and darker, but it still fits into the whole sort of like hard rock, hair metal stuff that was in vogue at the time.
Yeah, Sea of Sorrow. Sea of Sorrow is just a great song off that record too.
Oh, the whole
Leap Creek. I mean, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah. You know what's actually become my favorite song off that album is Sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great album. Dirt, obviously a masterpiece. I mean, just, incredible band, but they were kind of the band that was on the cusp that was like accepted on album rock radio, and people loved it because it was still the musicianship was there, the heaviness was there, versus Nirvana where you first hear it and it's like, well, these guys, this is just like a college band, this is not what we're used to. And then suddenly they were the thing.
It makes sense because I was a kid for when I tell you what I'm going to tell you, but I remember watching Headbangers Ball when Alice in Chains were on and being surprised by how silly those guys behaved.
They were at that water park.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I didn't know. I don't think I really had a full understanding of like the drug use everyone was going through, but I just thought like I'd seen some of their videos and I just assumed these were going to be like very serious, dark characters, like quiet and looking down at the ground the whole time while they're interviewed, but they're wearing like
they're at
swimming caps and goggles
on.
And stuff and goofing around. I was like, oh, these guys, they seem like they're pretty cool. They like different than what their music sounds like.
That's an all-time classic Headbangers Ball episode, I would say.
I should go back. I'm sure that's on YouTube probably, right? That's got to be.
I think a lot of that stuff is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that since it happened, but I'm thinking, oh, this is fun, different. Not what you'd expect from any of these bands, especially like thinking about it now. You're talking about that big shift in the culture of hard rock. A lot of those bands put out the image of being very serious and like very depressed and keeping to themselves and gloomy and brooding. And then Alice in Chains.
Most of them had moments like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. They all had some kind of.
There was
humor.
some tongue-in-cheek stuff. I don't know if Nirvana really ever did, or at least really ever showed it as much. But
I'm sure they had
Most
their
of
own
those bands
weird humor.
had their moments where it's like, oh, these guys are kind of goofy.
Yeah. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got 22 hours a day that you're not doing anything. You got to do something.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. We didn't rubber stamp it yet. We forgot to. If you disagree with us on Midlife Crisis, we're sorry.
That's just the fucking way it is.
Paul Anka says so. He probably agrees.
That's Paul Anka. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's Paul Anka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, dressing down his band in the dressing room.
Yeah, last
verbally
week
abusive.
Last week we played that, and Chris Jericho's guitar guy Charlie from Quarantine thought it was Joe Pesci.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, and we're like, no, it's Paul Anka yelling at his band.
Joe Pesci's based on Paul Anka.
Pretty much.
One of the craziest moments I ever had in my life was one time at Kid Rock's house. It was me, Kid Rock, and John Daly. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. John Daly had a couple drinks, and he starts drunk dialing his famous friends. And he's talking to Joe Pesci like this, and I could hear Joe Pesci's voice coming over his phone.
Wow.
I'm like, this is insane. I'm just some podunk kid from Buffalo, and I'm hearing Joe Pesci's voice on this guy's phone.
How was Joe Pesci? How did he receive a drunk phone call in the middle of the day from John Daly?
He's like, John, what are you doing, John? Like, what the hell is going on here?
Okay, so he was.
So this was not a common occurrence.
Well, no, but I mean, John Daly's a pretty big star, and he's a celebrity, and Joe Pesci's a big celebrity, and he just started drunk dialing his famous friends.
Wow, John, I'm sure there's a lot of John Daly stories, huh?
I have a lot of John Daly stories. I've hung out with him a few times, and he's exactly like you'd think he'd be, and he's a super nice guy.
Just a wild man, though, right?
I've seen his Barney Rubble feet up close. He just walks around, no shoes on, and
really. Outside, everywhere.
Well, it's inside.
Yeah.
Passed out.
He's something else.
He's a good guy, man. I'll tell you what. He's a nice guy.
Where does he live?
He lives down in I think Alabama or somewhere.
Okay. So he's just around. I was gonna say I didn't think he was a Detroit guy.
No.
Okay.
I see him in Nashville.
Okay. That makes sense.
Kid Rock's place.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So he'll have a gathering, and John Daly shows up.
Yeah, he's usually there, hanging out because they're pretty close. That's where I met him. So, he's a good guy. He's a music guy too. He's really into music. Yeah, he sings. The first time I ever saw him, he was singing on stage at Rock's Bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he does like the country thing, and
pretty good. Good enough
for
a fun night out kind of thing, like a fun. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, he texted me a bunch of songs. He's like, "What do you think about these songs?" And I listened to all of them. They were pretty good,
Oh, so he actually records songs too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever put anything out per se, but he has recorded songs. Yeah.
He's got a band, or does he play? I can't imagine he plays an instrument, right?
I can't recall if he does. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't see him focusing enough to play. I don't know him at all. I just get the image that he's like too wild to sit down with an instrument.
Yet he's focused enough to have won major golf championships.
True.
Which is that's the thing that's the dichotomy of John Daly.
Yeah.
Is like he's just this beer swilling maniac who has won the British Open and I think won more like major golf championships. That's the pinnacle of difficulty in sports is golf.
Great. He's one of these guys too. When you text him, he always texts back, like almost right away.
Oh, that's cool.
I know people that aren't nearly as famous as him that don't text back.
Yeah, but John Daly's a cool guy, huh?
He's just one of those guys. He's one of those people.
Have you had him on your show?
I haven't had him on my show. Just for no reason. I mean.
Get him on one of the Boneyard ones. Play one of his playlists.
Get him and Darren McCarty on together. That would be quite a meeting.
Yeah, they've hung out a few times. Andy, that's a good idea. I should have him. Submit a 5-song list. I wonder what he'd submit. That'd be funny.
Yeah, because then it's not really that much of a commitment from him. Like you're not taking up too much of his time, but you can still get him. Maybe you can even get him to send something in.
Yeah,
like a sentence or two or something.
He's in the country. It's probably all Ron Keel.
Yeah, there you go.
It's all heavy metal cowboy from him.
I don't think I've ever played a Ron Keel song in my life on the radio.
And don't start now, please.
I don't even know for sure if I think Ron Keel's a real person. I've never heard of him in my life until we started doing this show. I've never heard him mentioned anywhere outside of this show and from a couple listeners of this show.
I like this conspiracy theory.
Someone tried to make up a fake rock star here and trick me with Ron Keel.
He's like the Chris Gaines.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's just a made up character.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Gaines, man, that was a misstep. Talk about missteps.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just when you get that big and you just like I can be Chris Gaines or I can put out the Lulu album.
I can be Andy Kaufman and
right.
Basically.
And do whatever the fuck I want to do and I'm going to. So there you go.
All right. Well, I think we did it, guys. I want to say thank you to Meltdown for joining us again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, you guys are welcome anytime. I love doing the show. In case you're wondering, the Florida Panthers just won.
I just noticed that.
Did they?
Double overtime, 5-4. So they're up what?
No, it's tied 1-1.
It's 1-1.
Okay. All right.
Wow. Okay.
I think that one's going 7.
It's back to Florida. Yeah, could be. 2 overtime games. Not bad.
That's a good start for the finals. All right. Well, thank you, Meltdown. We appreciate you being here. Could you tell everybody how to find you if they haven't already?
Yeah, at Meltdown Rocks on Twitter and Instagram, and Meltdown WRIF and Meltdown Rocks on Facebook as well. I got 2 accounts now. I can't change my name on Facebook because I have an email that I don't use anymore, and for whatever reason I try to change it, and they send a thing to my old email, and I'm like, I don't have an email. And it's like this vicious circle.
Yeah. I hear you.
That's a mess.
All right.
Well, yeah, continued success on Sirius. That's exciting.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you guys so much for having me. I'm glad I got to spit out some of that Faith No More. It's been in my brain too long.
I want to ask you more about it, but we'd still be talking about that and not even talking about the song yet.
Yeah,
it was up to me. All right. Well, thank you.
It's Meltdown. We know that he'll be back. Just give him time. It's Meltdown from downtown Motown. We got that guy.
Nice added an echo on that. It was well done.
That was fun, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time on a Friday night.
Well, that's that's why I thought, because we had to record Friday night this week. Meltdown's a working man. He can't be up all night on a school night. So I was thinking maybe you can do it on a Friday.
Well, no, actually, I play hockey in the morning and stuff. If I do wake up, if I don't, I'm up at 8 o'clock. But it's funny because I recorded both of my shows for this weekend. Are we still live? I don't know if I want to.
No.
Well, hold on. Boop.
No,